When a manufacturer tells you 500 pieces is the MOQ, most founders approach this and they hear a wall. They think to themselves, I'll never find a manufacturer that can actually deliver what I want. Every single manufacturer that's worth working with has such a high minimum order. It gets them frustrated. But let's take a step back. They think that the factory is being difficult, like they genuinely don't want to work with a startup brand. They think that the 500 pieces is this hard limit and they don't know how to get around it. But sometimes the 500 pieces isn't that firm limit that we think about. Sometimes the 500 pieces goes beyond just this arbitrary number that a factory has set. Sometimes it has to do with the fabric that you're using. Are you picking a fabric that has a higher minimum order requirement? Maybe it comes down to the fact that you want a customized color or some sort of customized trim. Maybe you're incorporating very complex details into the product like laser cuts, all of which require the factory to use complex machinery in order to execute. The amount of work that makes the production worth it actually changes the minimum order quantity that the factory will accept. The mistake is that you didn't understand what that number that they gave you was connected to. And when you do, it will change your ability to negotiate with factories to find a genuine win-win solution. This is what I want to break down in this video. The questions that you can ask so that you can create a scenario in which the factory is happy to be more flexible with you. And it proves to them actually that you're someone that is worth working with. So without further ado, my name is Shadi. I'm the co-founder and creative director of Fittdesign, the world's first sportswear design agency. And over the last 10 years, we've worked with thousands of brands to help them go from an idea to a physical reality. And the number one lever that I've been able to pull when it comes to factory negotiations is understanding what factories mean when they say specific things. Because as a startup, you may hear specific things and feel frustrated that you don't know what to answer, or you don't know why a factory is telling you something specific. Or you tell them something and you're not speaking their language. So if you wanted to learn how to speak their language and how to know what they mean, what they say, and when they say it, so that you can get a better outcome, this is going to be the episode for you. The first point that you have to understand is that when a factory gives you an answer, especially when you haven't built a strong relationship with them, is that usually it's the short answer. There's no context there. So you might ask them right off the bat, can you lower the MOQ? And they tell you, no, the MOQ is 500 pieces. This does not mean always that the 500 MOQ is for one product and that is a strict rule. What they means is that given your current information, the context that you've given them, there's not enough usage and consumption of a specific fabric or a specific trim for them to justify anything lower. So instead of asking, can you lower the MOQ? You might ask them simply, what's driving that MOQ? What is that minimum order quantity based on? And that question alone changes the nature of the conversation. You're no longer arguing with the factory. You're seeking to understand where they're coming from. And then when you do, that's where you can sit on their side and try to find a win-win conversation. Point two is that minimum order quantity, although they'll tell you it's per style, may not always be about the style. You might think to yourselves that, oh, I have to make 500 pieces of this legging in this color. But if the MOQ, for example, here is coming from the fabric selection, perhaps you're opting for a very unique fabric. You might ask yourself, okay, if I use the same fabric in the same colorways across the same product category, but across maybe different silhouettes. For example, you might have a regular legging, you might have a flare legging, a capri legging, and a biker short. Now you're actually still helping the factory to reach that fabric requirement that you have put on the table, but you're not forcing the whole order onto a single product. So the win for them is that they get the fabric consumption, they get the order, and for you, you get that variety that you're looking for without overextending yourself in the minimum order. In this case, you're building a small product family from the same product and fabric base. And although it may look like the factory changed their answer, so you might be thinking to yourself, oh, didn't they say that the 500 was a firm minimum order quantity? Now they're changing. This doesn't necessarily mean that they lied. But it means that you finally understood what that 500 minimum was based on, and you're able to use that to both of your advantages, your advantage and the factory's advantage, to find a win-win. Point three is that brands think in systems. So if you look at brands like Nike, like Lululemon, they think in systems. They create product categories that use similar types of fabrics, similar types of construction, similar types of trims and details. They do this for economies of scale. They do this for ease of logistics. They do this for better efficiencies. If you look at Lululemon, for example, they have fabric families like Nulu, Everlux, Luxtreme, and a bunch of others. Same is true with Gymshark. Gymshark will group their products in different categories. Within their seamless, they might have their vital, they might have their onyx. And within those, they're reusing same types of logos, same sizes of logos, same types of knits, same types of materials, which allow them to have much more operating leverage with the factories that they're communicating with. And as you've seen with Gymshark, they tend to create entire collections that reuse similar entities. And the reason they do this may not just be from a minimum order quantity perspective. They're not just asking themselves specifically, what product do we like? They're asking themselves, what fabric, what fit, what construction, what product logic can I carry across a collection so I can create a better product at a better price with a better order? And this actually helps the factory understand the product and the production to streamline and to give more flexibility where necessary. Because if every single product that you have shares or uses a different type of fabric, different type of trim, different logo, different color, you're really asking the factory to begin their development process from scratch for every single product. There's a set amount of overhead work that a factory has to do in order to source a specific fabric, a specific trim, a specific stitch. And that's why they may be way less willing to negotiate on minimum order quantity if each and every single one of your products is a new project all on its own. But if you have a lot of products that share the same work and they have to do that work once up front, there is where the negotiation ability comes in, because they know that once they're able to do this one job, they're able to capture the entire order, and that's where the flexibility comes into play. Point 4 is that the sample is not just either good or bad when it comes to speaking the language of manufacturers. Founders often will receive a sample, and out of frustration and because of the expectations that they had being crushed, they'll react emotionally. They'll say things like, this fit is bad, or the product looks cheap, or the bra is supportive, the waistband is completely wrong. This may all be true technically, but a factory will come back to you and tell you, okay, we can't fix this. And the reason that they can't fix this is not because they're lying or because they don't want to fix this. It's because they don't know what to fix. A factory cannot fix a feeling. They can only fix a very specific issue, and you need to identify to them what the outcome that you're trying to achieve is. So instead of saying something like the waistband feels wrong, you might say the waistband sits, or the waistband rolls over or rolls under when the model sits. Can we review the waistband height, the type of material used, the construction, the elastic, the fabric recovery, and the compression? This gives them a clear set of guidelines in terms of what the problem is, what you're trying to achieve, and what are the potential issues or areas of improvement that you might be interested in exploring with them. Again, instead of saying something like the bra is not supportive, you might say something like the underband is lifting during lifting motions, or let's just say shoulder press motions, and the strap tension is way too soft for a lot of the medium support that we're going for. This allows you to, again, outline what the problem is and what the outcome that you're trying to achieve is. Point 5 is that we have to understand that price is not just a number. This is the same thing that happens with cost. Instead of telling a factory, oh, why is this so expensive? Actually, you're going to get into a much better negotiating position by asking them instead, what part of the product is driving this cost that we're seeing? Sometimes the whole cost is not just the entire garment itself. It's not a blanket cost. It may come down to one detail. Maybe you have a very specific type of zipper pocket that is custom sourced, and because it's custom sourced in low quantities, there's a high overhead cost that's getting spread across a few number of units, which is artificially inflating the amount or the price on that product. You might have a bonded seam, which requires that product to go to a different factory, and because the quantity is so small, there's a high overhead cost. You might have a custom dyed fabric, again, where you're paying that surcharge for a low quantity dyeing. You might have a double layer waistband or molded cup that has a setup fee. Each of these situations create a scenario in which there's hidden costs that are really justified costs that you don't know, that you don't understand, that are driving the price up, which just creates frustration for you because the price seems heavily inflated. And for the factory, they're doing all this work without getting the business in return. So it's a lose-lose situation there. So instead of saying, can you make it cheaper? You might ask, what's the biggest driver or cost driver in this design? If we want to reduce the cost without ruining the product, what are the details that you would recommend we can remove that have the highest cost for the lowest sort of return on investment? This gives you real options. They might give you the recommendation of going with a stock colorway, so still using your custom fabric, but a stock colorway that's pre-dyed, or removing a specific type of zipper that might be suitable on a specific type of product, but on yours, it might be overkill. Or maybe it's about simplifying the construction of the product so that the actual pattern design and the actual labor construction is more cost effective just because of the factory supervision or the actual failure rate that that specific construction gives a product that ends up skyrocketing the labor cost. Point number 6 is that you need to learn the constraints before you actually go negotiate with a factory. A beginner is going to ask something along the lines of, I can't do 500 pieces, can you do 200 units? The better question might be, what would need to change from what I've given you to allow us to do 200 units in a win-win scenario? Or a beginner might ask, can you make this product cheaper? Instead, you might ask the question, what is the cost that's driving this product's price and how can we make it more cost effective? Ultimately, you might say something along the lines of that the sample is wrong. Instead, you might say, oh, I've received the sample and I think the issue is coming from the pattern or the fabric or the measurement or the construction. This is the language that manufacturers understand. And when you speak their language, they no longer have to translate your words into their ideas and then end up having to translate their ideas back into your words. You essentially cut out a little game of Chinese whispers that you don't have to do. And what ends up happening there is that you get to the end result much faster with a lot less miscommunication. So if you guys want and are sick and tired of actually going through the process with manufacturers, only to find out that they can't hit your minimum order quantity or the price is too high, and you find that they end up ghosting you, you can check the link in the description to work with us one-on-one. We service small and established brands alike. We're able to help you take your idea from a physical or from an idea to a physical product in under 30 days. And we're able to put a production roadmap in your hands once you fill in the actual form within 5 minutes of doing so. Guys, and I say this from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.